Welcome into the Irish Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host, and I'm just ready for the whine and complain about where Notre Dame is ranked to be over and for the playoffs to get underway.
I'm Alan Pinkett, two-time All-American, and here we are versus Stanford. One win, and we're in. I'm a poet and didn't know it.
Reggie Brooks, 93 All-American. And what time is this game going to be over tomorrow on Saturday? Yeah, we got to think about that. Why are we playing Stanford this late out west? You know, this shouldn't be a competition at all for the Irish.
And I'm Allison Hayes. I've been covering the Irish for more than 20 years, and on the eve before Thanksgiving, I am thankful for Notre Dame football.
Play like a champion today. It's the Fighting Irish Squad Show. Everything Notre Dame Fighting Irish every week. Breaking down the biggest news and game-changing plays the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Wake up the echoes. The Fighting Irish Squad Show starts now.
All right, we are winding down the regular season, and I don't know about you guys, but it feels good to be in this position at this point in the year, getting ready to take on a Stanford team that I think Notre Dame is going to handle once again. Before we get started tonight, please subscribe to the Irish Squad Show on YouTube or follow wherever you get your podcasts. And in today's episode, we'll talk about the latest CFP rankings, the potential first-round matchup. While the Irish got a dominating win over Syracuse, they did lose some important players. We'll talk about that. We'll also preview Notre Dame's final game of the regular season against Stanford, a 10:30 game. Are you guys going to be watching it live, or are you going to be setting your DVR? Plus, Jeremiyah Love is finally in the Heisman conversation. And we've got two Heisman contenders right here on our squad. And spoiler alert, it's not me or Joe. So we're going to talk to them about their experience and what that was like being a part of that Heisman race. But first, we're going to give you a shout out to our title sponsor tonight. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, guys. So once again, Notre Dame, a massive 32.5-point favorite over Stanford with an over-under of 51.5, according to our partners at FanDuel Sportsbook. So we're going to get into this weekend's regular season finale in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the CFP poll that came out on Tuesday. Notre Dame staying put once again. They've got that number 9 spot locked down. A lot of those spots, not a whole lot of movement there. Notre Dame, though, looking like they have the potential to have that 8-9 matchup with Oklahoma that would be in Norman. Notre Dame would not host. They would be on the road for that opener of the playoffs. And then we saw a little bit of movement with Texas Tech and Oregon and Ole Miss, all making some shifts there, but all rounding out that top. Here, let's take a look. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, Georgia 4, Texas Tech 5, Oregon in at 6, Ole Miss 7, Oklahoma 8, Notre Dame 9, Alabama 10, and BYU is in at 11. Now, we've talked about this, throughout this season and since the CFP poll has come out. Notre Dame in at 9. Are we liking where they're at? Still holding steady at 9. Can they move? Do you think they can do enough against Stanford, or does that not even matter and it's all about everyone above them?
Well, I guess I'll go first. I think 9 is a good spot. I don't think there's really any place to go. There would have to be some movement with the teams ahead of Notre Dame in order for Notre Dame to jump up. But 9 is a good spot. And frankly, I don't care who we play. I don't care where we play. I think this team is on a roll right now, and I don't think any of the teams want to play Notre Dame right now. And the other thing I'll say, because I am starting to see a number of people speak of the head-to-head matchup with Miami and why Miami is not ranked ahead of Notre Dame. Well, Texas didn't rank ahead of Oklahoma, and they beat Oklahoma. But I think, I listened to a lot of the pundits, and listen, Notre Dame has earned some of its overrated talk in the past. In fact, when Brian Kelly was coach, when they went to the playoffs, it was only to see what good looked like. But those days are over. Those days are over with Marcus Freeman. And when people take the time to watch Notre Dame, they see a team that can play anybody. They see a well-rounded, all three phases type of juggernaut that, like I said, I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to play. And what I guess I like about the committee keeping them at 9 is they're acknowledging that Miami is playing better and that head-to-head is one of the components, but it's not the only component. And forgive me for saying it this way, but Stevie Wonder can see that Notre Dame would beat Miami right now. So the eye test does play a part. It's one of the components, and I'm getting tired of some of the haters, but I expect some of it. But that's the only team in the rankings where head-to-head has been an issue. Hadn't been with anybody else.
Well, I think Notre Dame is right where they need to be. Considering what several weeks ago we were like just singing the swan song for Notre Dame of not making the playoffs. So to be in this spot, I think it's advantageous for one because again, there's a lot of people overlooking Notre Dame, and with regard to all of the, it would be great to move up one more spot, but I think it's hard to justify that. And my thing with Miami is it's a good chance they won't even play in the conference championship. So let's address that first before you start addressing Notre Dame in Miami. Should Miami even make it, considering that they won't be in their conference championship, so they won't be ranked 1 or 2 in the ACC. So a lot of the consternation there is just, again, they're trying to get more ACC teams in. So it's always about campaigning. The SEC is campaigning for more of their teams to get in, just like the Big Ten wants to get more of their teams in, because it comes down to money. And like I said, first round, that you take care of business where you're at. Instead of worrying about where other people are, focus on where you're at and say, hey, do we belong, or are we where we're supposed to be, and can we make some moves? Like, Notre Dame is always going to have haters. That's just, part of the game. But they also know when Notre Dame is doing well, that benefits all parties in college football. And, you don't have to like it. It's just what it is. So I like where Notre Dame is, and I like how this team is playing right now in that transition. It would be absolutely wonderful to get up one more spot because, just to get a home game. But I get it. Hey, if we don't get it, it doesn't matter where we play, because you have a running game, you have a defense that is scoring points. And that was not just the Syracuse game where they scored points. You have this defense that is being very focused on attacking offenses, playing on the opposite line of scrimmage of the offensive line, and really getting after people. And this is we talk about identity. Notre Dame is an attacking style defense, and you've seen the progression of that over the course of these few weeks. And then we run the ball, we run the football. We'll talk more about and I haven't really talked a lot about Jeremiyah Love, but this young man, that's he is definitely special, and you see why he's in the conversation. Because every week, and Allison, you touched on it before, he finds a way to make a play. And when you have that type of weapon on the offensive side of the ball, that creates opportunities for this offense, and CJ Carr to get the ball downfield. And I think that's where, again, being that first round, it's kind of nice to be able to play away from home sometimes, because you don't have a lot of the distractions that you do at home. so you can go on the road and say us against the world mentality. And it helps kind of lock in and be a little more focused on the things at hand. And you're not worrying about, hey, does mom, dad, grandma, uncle have tickets? You're focused on, hey, we're in a hostile environment. Let's lock in and go to work.
Well, Joe, as it stands right now, Notre Dame would potentially play Oklahoma in Norman. Do you like that matchup for the Irish?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think Mateer has played well since he came back. I mean, that first game back versus Texas, he rushed it. I think that's why rightfully like the committee is not punishing them. I do think that that's a smart decision to say you have an injured quarterback, the most important player on a team. He comes back early versus Texas, rushes back from his hand surgery, doesn't play well. They lose that game. So but I do like the matchup. I think Oklahoma's a good team. I'm impressed with where they are. I didn't think Venables was going to honestly get them to this point. Like it felt like they were going to struggle in their transition and just not be a great team in the SEC. But I think this is a good matchup for the Irish. And I will say, like, I'm a little nervous going into this weekend. Like I will be rooting heavily for for UCF and LSU and Auburn, because the fact that there's not a good ACC team behind you or a Power 4 team, it is reasonable to think that like if Alabama and BYU both win their conferences, they could jump Notre Dame. And then because of these auto bids that teams don't deserve, Notre Dame could get screwed. Like it's just the reality of it. So rooting for those three teams to upset one of the teams behind you or in front of you this weekend. But I think they match up well with Oklahoma in the first round, even though it's an SEC team. I think they'll be able to move the ball against them, and it'll be a fun game. I might have to make that drive from Houston, honestly, if they're up in Norman. Like it's not that far of a drive. So maybe Reggie, I'll pick you up on the way, and we'll go to Norman.
I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'll meet you down there.
Yeah, sounds great.
We can tailgate together. Some people have been asking, is there, we all think, okay, they went out, they're in, but can they get a home game? Will it be on the road? Is there a scenario in which Notre Dame could not make it? Could they get bumped out? It's very, very unlikely at this point, but I did do some research on that. And one of the guys from ESPN, Greg McElroy, he said the way that the Irish could potentially miss the playoff entirely, and I quote, Texas Tech wins, they punch their ticket to the Big 12 title, but then BYU wins the Big 12 championship game against Texas Tech, avenging the regular season loss. Now you have two Big 12 teams in the field because Texas Tech right now is sitting there at number 5. The committee last year gave us some precedent with how things kind of shook up when it came to conference championship Saturday. SMU was in a very similar situation to Texas Tech last year. They lost the conference title game and didn't fall out of the field. The team that won, Clemson, got in. So now there's two Big 12 teams in BYU and Texas Tech, which could force Notre Dame potentially out of the field. And then he also added that they could get bumped out for an ACC champion, get bumped out for a group of 5 champion. And if Alabama wins the SEC, they would jump in front of the Irish. That's a whole lot of things that would have to happen for it to take place, but they're saying it's a chance. There is a possibility. So we do need to keep an eye on this weekend and then, of course, championship weekend. And some of those games to keep an eye on, of course, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. You got to figure Ole Miss is going to win that. Utah, Kansas. I think Utah is going to win it. Georgia, Georgia Tech. That could be interesting there, although I do think the Bulldogs will pull it out. Texas A&M versus Texas. That is also a big one. Texas is so inconsistent. You don't know what you're going to get from week to week. Texas A&M struggled last week, but then we're able to come back and pull it out. So very interesting matchups there. Of course, you got Ohio State, Michigan. If Michigan beat Ohio State for a 5th straight time, that would be wild. That would absolutely blow things up and make things very interesting. Of course, you've got Pitt taking on Miami, Oregon, Washington, and LSU, Oklahoma. You have to assume Oklahoma is going to be LSU, but again, you never know. Anything can happen in college football. All right, moving us along. We'll talk more about this at a later time, but at least want to mention it, that the CFP, 10 conference commissioners plus Notre Dame's athletic director, Pete Bavacqua, they had a statement regarding the format for the CFP. Of course, everyone's talking about whether it's going to expand or not. Right now, it is at 12 teams with the possibility of as many as 24 in the very near future. That vote was supposed to happen on December 1st, but ESPN has reportedly agreed to extending the deadline until January 23rd. That's the day after the national championship. And I'm just going to mention this, and if you want to comment, you can, or we can move forward. But the ones that can't agree, the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're on very different sides of the spectrum. The Big Ten leaning towards 24 teams with multiple automatic qualifiers, while the SEC leans towards 16 teams with more at-large spots. That is more favorable, of course, to the SEC. And so just, do you like it? And you don't have to fully get into it if you don't want to, but I like it at 12. I don't know what the big rush is to try to expand it to more. One argument is that, and instead of feeling like everyone is, you're debating what worthy teams do not get in, you're flopping it. The worthy teams are in, and you're more arguing which of the less worthy teams do get in.
Let's be honest. We know what the end goal is.
Money.
Period. Period. And in every conference is focused on what's going to be more advantageous for them from a money standpoint. If the SEC, they want a more at larges, because now in the top 25 they have 9 teams in the top 25. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they would like that. And in the Big Ten, they want automatic bids because hey, they got 18 teams in that freaking conference, which, that's your fault. No one told you to put that many teams in there. So back up. So I don't see why this does not benefit college athletics, and it doesn't benefit college football. That's more game for these young men to have to play, and more pounding and pounding on their bodies that they don't need. They're trying to make it to that next level. Again, 14 would be more than enough. I agree. 12 is, to me, the way this is shaping up, it's perfect because, again, you have a lot of the drama, a lot of the questions, who's here, who's there. So the committee is when you get to the, up to 24 teams, you're just like, well, you're just pandering to a conference or to a set of a few conferences. And that's not what college football should be about. I played a long time ago, so what it should be about is, okay, hey, what's in the best interest of these young men that are out there putting their body on the line, and for the schools. I mean, think about this. You're talking about 16 teams. We're pushing the NFL. We're looking at February here. Come on,
right?
The national championship is literally, I believe, it's on my birthday, the 19th. Like, so if you add 4 more teams, you're moving into February. Come on, let's not make this the NFL. Don't do that. You have a great product. You have an opportunity to just do what's right. Damn it, do it.
I think 24 would definitely water it down. I am very happy with 12. 16 even seems like too many to me. So I would be happy for him to stay at 12. But what has happened, just like Reggie alluded to, is they see more money, more games. And so we might be at 16 come January 23rd. And I'm glad to know that your birthday is January 19th. Mine is January 25th.
And guess what? January 4th.
Let's go.
Bunch of
I'm
January
January 28th.
Let's go.
Oh, wow.
It's the perfect team right here.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
I would just add, I just think the 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big 12, why? If it played out that way this year, and Arizona were to beat Arizona State this weekend, and I don't want to disrespect my people that know I work at ESPN Houston. I love Willie Fritz, but they would be the 4th team in the Big 12 and get an automatic qualifier to the college football playoff. The University of Houston is not good enough to play in the college football playoffs this year. They don't deserve it, and they would get in because of this. The Big 12 and the ACC don't deserve 4 auto bids. The conferences aren't good enough. And at some point, we'll be saying the same thing about the Big 10. Probably never the SEC, but at some point we'll say the same thing about there's not 4 teams in the Big 10 that deserve this. So I'm very anti-expansion. Like I think Reggie hit it like 12 or 14. If you want to go to the NFL model and just give the Big Ten winner and the SEC winner a bye, that's fine. But they're not even talking about that. They're talking about 24 teams. It's gonna be 48 before we know it. Like
Right.
we're gonna be playing year round at some point, it seems like.
Where does it end?
Yeah.
It feels like participation trophies, and that's totally watering everything down. At what point do the players get a say in this also? They are making money. They are having, a bigger role in that sense. Why are they not being involved in this decision-making process? Because ultimately their bodies, their brains, that is what's being impacted the most. The other people are making the money off of the games, but it's the players who are most physically and mentally impacted by it. So that's another conversation to have for another day. Let's take our first time out here. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the injuries that Notre Dame is dealing with and how that could have an effect on this game, on this playoff run. And we will preview Notre Dame taking on Stanford.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right. Well, Notre Dame got a big win last week against Syracuse, but it was costly in some ways, losing Kingston, Viliamuasa, Dallas Clark, and then, of course, Tay Johnson also out again. And KVA and Dallas Clark are out for the season. How do you guys feel like these losses affect Notre Dame's defense, and who steps up in their place?
Well, KVA, that one stands out more than anything to me, just because of his ability to cover and rush the passer. Those two areas. I mean, when you look at it, it's just going to put a lot more, not a lot more, but it's going to put a little more pressure on Drake Bowen, Jaden Osbury, and Jalen Sneed to, they're going to have to step up. And then you have Madden Fariamo that I think, will have to, he'll get more game time, but, that's the one that concerns me the most, is because of his cover ability and his ability to rush. Because, Drake Bowen, that we've talked about it before in the coverage, he's a liability if you can get him one-on-one or back. But, so that one, that's the most pressing one, I think, to find someone that can really fill in and, cover. It's going to take a few people to cover for him. Dallas Clark, Devonta Smith is out there. And he's true freshman, so I feel like we're okay there. And with just watching Tay Johnson on the sideline, and not to mention, his backup did pretty good this past week. So Jalen, he let us know. Like I said, I'm not chopped liver, so with this game, I feel really comfortable where that is. But we'll get him back, because I think that's going to be a key factor, is getting him back, and actually having that, get that depth back. But those are, like I said, just those injuries. Dallas Clark, that's not saying that the least, but that's the one that I'm least concerned about, just because they have people that can fill in that role, and guys that have really stepped up already in that secondary. But the linebacking core, we haven't seen a lot of Madden, so who's gonna be the guy to step up and really help fill the shoes for KVA, because just how he's played this entire year has been extraordinary, and he added such great depth and dimension on the whether it's rushing and coverage. That's going to be a key question, and that's one of the things I'm going to be looking at closely, is how do they match up with their tight ends and running backs with our linebackers.
I've been impressed with the quality of depth that Notre Dame has shown all season long. And I've also been impressed with the mindset that they have, meaning when somebody goes down, next man up, and they're still held to the same standard. So as disappointing as it is to see KVA be out for the year, I think that next person, whoever backs them up, is just itching to get in there to make some plays, and they know that they have to rise to the occasion when they get in there. And so I don't worry so much, but that was a big loss with KVA.
Yeah, I think Marcus Freeman said it best at halftime of the Syracuse game when he was asked about the backups potentially playing. He just said the standard doesn't change. It's Notre Dame plays. They hold all their players to the same standard, whether you're a starter, whether you're a backup, whether you're in because you're destroying a team or you're in because of an injury replacement. Like, who steps up? It's a great question. I think Reggie's point, it's probably multiple people for all of these positions. And it's mostly for the guys that aren't out for the year. It's about getting healthy now for the playoff and focusing on that. But it's kind of feels like a team effort at this point. Like, and you have to trust your coaching staff. And, because it's mostly on the defensive side, like having, Marcus Freeman as the head coach, I feel like makes me feel a little bit better about it as well. Just like being able to find the guys you need to step up in those roles. But it's also Stanford, so that helps. Not to be too disrespectful, but it does help a little bit.
No doubt about it. Kingston Viliamasa, his numbers for this season, he's fourth on the team with 48 total tackles. He's got 7.5 tackles for loss for minus 32 yards. He has 3 sacks for minus 17 yards. He has an interception, 2 pass breakups, 5 quarterback hurries, a fumble recovery. So that's a lot. That's a disruptive young man out there on that field. I do agree with you, though, that in the sense that you do feel like we hear that all the time. All coaches say that. I mean, even when they don't really have that kind of depth and they don't have next man up mentality, they all say it. But you do really see it and feel it at Notre Dame, especially these last couple of years where we've seen guys just step into those roles when they have their opportunity. It's like you can tell they're just dying. They're itching to get their chance. And when they do get in, they take advantage of it. And you talk about Jalen Stroman, man, he balled out this weekend, and his numbers, PFF has him. He had one of the highest graded players at his position for week 13 at 92.9. Just absolutely incredible performance by Jalen. I'm excited to see what he does this week against another inferior team. So it should be a lot of fun. And let's see, what are his numbers? He's 33 total tackles, 3 total tackles for loss for minus 10. He has 1 sack and the interception for 44 yards on the return, by the way. And then, of course, 2 pass breakups. So, I mean, he's made a big impact in a very short amount of time. So kudos to him. And I think it's just going to keep getting better from there. All right, let's talk a little bit about this game, shall we? It does, and I hate to say it, but it's one of these ones, again, we're kind of like Syracuse. It's just like, well, we can, try to talk it up and make it, you can't overlook them. And it's going to be a challenge and all of that. But, Stanford's 4-7. They're 12th in the ACC. They've lost 3 of their last 4, including a 42-7 butt whooping by Miami. And that is one of those ones that the committee is doing as a similar opponent, or a like opponent where you see how they competed against each other. They didn't, we'll see, 42-7, that's a pretty good drubbing there. But they are coming off of a win last week against Cal. And so, and the Cardinal offense averaging 306 yards per game. Notre Dame's defense is allowing 313 yards per game. Joe, start us off here with the quarterback situation. They've kind of been struggling in that position to figure it out. And just, who's going to be expected to play at QB and how that is a matchup for Notre Dame's secondary.
I think it's going to be Elijah Brown again, it's going to be his 3rd start of his career, a redshirt freshman. It's kind of a mixed bag, I would say, through 2 games. Like, the numbers against North Carolina look pretty good, but the game wasn't that competitive. So you're just kind of wondering, like, how much of that is, garbage time. And last week they get the win versus Cal, but I think it was 10 for 20 on the day. So like it wasn't very effective for him. And look, one of the big differences for me about this one is, even though I know Frank Reich is only at this point the interim coach because they fired their coach before the season even started. I don't think he'll be back as the Stanford coach next year. He was just doing a favor for Andrew Luck, which is still weird to say. But it's another one of those situations where, like we saw, I think against Pitt, where you've got this young, inexperienced quarterback and you've got a real veteran defensive coordinator that's going to throw a bunch of stuff at him, whether it's, going from zone to blitz and moving guys around and just different coverages. Like they should be able to kind of make it a nightmare again for Elijah Brown in this game. And maybe down the road he's a better quarterback for Stanford, but right now I was watching just a bunch of highlights and kind of the quick game recap of their last game versus Cal, and it doesn't look super comfortable back there. So feels like one where if you can just get a little bit of pressure on him, you're going to kind of ruin his day, especially if you can get up early. Like if you get up 14-0 and you force them into a throwing situation, I feel like your defense might be getting a couple touchdowns in this game.
I agree. Hey, Reggie and Allen, I'm going to have you guys take the run game and the offensive line. And just to set this up for you, the O-line has given up 39 sacks this season. And Elijah Brown, in just his 3 starts, has taken 13 of those sacks. So start us off with their O-line and then transition us into the run game, because they do have some success with the run.
Well, Reggie, I'll let you do the offensive line. I would love to talk about this running back, Micah Ford. I guess the one thing I do like about him is he wears number 20. So that bodes well with me. But when I watch him run, he kind of reminds me of Jadarian Price. He's got sort of that stride that looks just like Jadarian Price, where his upper body doesn't move, but the legs are going as fast as the Tasmanian Devil. And he's very good in terms of bouncing it to the outside. And I think he's probably the strongest part of that offense, his running ability. But I think he might be the one bright spot on offense. So containing him will be somewhat of a task. But it's definitely one of those games where, you look at the players, but you also look at the stats. And if you look at the stats, it's like, man, I ain't even turning this game on. But, offense, they are number 124 out of 135 teams. So, and even though I talk about Michael Ford, they're 134 in rushing. So it's one of those, sometimes the stats don't tell you anything, and sometimes the stats tell everything.
Well, just look at this offensive line, and we talked about the sacks again. I don't think the sacks is the bigger issue. It's their inability to move people off the ball. And again, like I said, their rushing game is really it should be their bread and butter, because that's really all they have, and they can't do that. So it's when you watch this offensive line, just see a lot of disjointed. I mean, with the tandem blocks. They allow people to split double teams. And just watching the Syracuse game this past week, and how much that Notre Dame played on the opposite side of the ball in the backfield, I have a hard problem seeing how it's going to be any different, which I believe Syracuse's offensive line was better. I think this offensive line, they're not as physically gifted they're big, but I just don't see them having the physical power to move guys. And that's the thing that you watch when you watch Stanford. They don't, especially teams that are effective against the run, they're not moving anybody. They're not creating a second line of scrimmage. And I would just be shocked if we don't see Notre Dame playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage throughout the course of this game, enforcing them. And to Joe's point, if Elijah is a mixed bag, if he's not getting any support from the running game, he's a freshman. Red shirt or not, that's asking an awful lot of this young man to step in, and when he's most likely going to be running for his life. And then and I can see, and this is when you watch the Syracuse game, a lot of the defense I mean, the safeties weren't backing up. They were sitting and playing downhill, and that's why they were getting, I mean, literally the pick six was catching it on the run in the opposite direction. So, and it was because, again, he was under such duress from the defensive line. And that's another thing. We talk about, that was one of the things last year that we really had a lot of, injuries in was a defensive line. This defensive line, the depth, I mean, they just keep coming. I mean, one guy after another, and I think that's going to be the saving grace of this team this year as opposed to last year, is that you have those key players that are playing at a high level on the defensive line, and they create those openings because they're destroying those double teams and really causing a lot of pressure and splitting double teams and getting that penetration that forces offensive linemen and offenses to play on their heels as opposed to coming off and pushing guys around.
Well, one spot where Stanford might actually have a slight advantage is in special teams, or at least in the kicking game. Notre Dame did announce that Noah Burnett, the kicker, who has been out, only appeared in 5 games this season with his lingering injury there. He has been upgraded to questionable. Freeman hadn't said Monday whether or not he was for sure going to play or not. They're kind of letting that work itself out. But as soon as he's ready to go, they have to figure out if he's healthy enough. And if he is, they'll get him back in. But Burnett, 5 of 6 this season, his longest conversion at 48 yards. And Cardinal kicker Emmett Kenny is 14 for 19 with his longest conversion at 46 yards. So there is a spot there where maybe Stanford can get some points on the board with a field goal or 2. That's yet to be determined. Let's transition ourselves over into this defensive matchup against Notre Dame's offense. And of course, the Fighting Irish averaging 453 yards of total offense per game. Cardinal defense allowing just under 400 per matchup. The defense not disruptive at all. 3 interceptions this season, 23 sacks, 7 forced fumbles. How out of hand could this get for Notre Dame's offense against this week of a defense? CJ Carr, Jeremiyah Love, I mean, come on.
Well, again, I'll point out the stats. Stanford ranks number 135 against the pass.
Oof.
So
how many teams are there in how many schools?
I think it's 135. It's either 135 or 136.
They just added a few because I remember it used to only be 130. So
used to be. I remember when it was 120. But some teams made the step up to D1, but they're sitting at 135. Now, you can't assume that they're just going to be piss poor. You got to think that they're going to have some pride too and want to play hard and play a good game. But from a matchup perspective, if they are that bad at the pass, I know that Notre Dame's going to want to feed Jeremiyah Love with the Heisman talk and Jadarian Price. But this could be one of those games where we go a long way to building the confidence of CJ Carr, because he only threw 9 passes last week. You'd like to see him get up around 20 passes, so that he can, at least break a sweat, have a little lather about him and get acclimated into playing again. But it may be one of those where we just hit him with the pass and then come back and hit him with the run. But it looks like a very favorable matchup for the Notre Dame offense.
Well, I agree with your point. I said, but just do not get cute. I don't want to see us getting cute and trying to throw the ball here. And if they don't stop the run, keep punching them in the mouth, because you do that, they start coming up, and then you get those over the top, one shot. And if all the if CJ only completes 10 passes, let's make sure they're 10 over 20 yards. Each one of them over 20 yards, we'll be happy. So yeah, I would definitely stress, we're going to force you to stop the run, because I'm a firm believer. When you punch somebody in the mouth, they have a decision to make, and just let them know this is what you're gonna get all game. So, you tend to start leaning and start to kind of trying to flex up to take the hit, and you kind of your mind goes a little bit, and you forget your duties behind you. Like I said, and like I said, seeing with those linebackers, draw those linebackers up, just keep pounding them, and I'm going back to it. This is the game. This is the last game. Eli's getting in the zone. Eli's getting in the zone, baby.
Got to do it.
We're gonna have a deep middle route. Those linebackers are gonna come up, and boom, we're gonna hit him over the top because he was that close the last time when he stepped out of bounds. See, he's not gonna be on the sideline this time. This is gonna be a straight down the middle, over the top, touchdown, Eli Reardon. Let's go.
And I wanted to just throw in one more thing because I did watch the Stanford Miami game, and that game was tight all the way up until halftime. And then Miami found a way to separate, which when they play at home, they usually win. But that game was a lot tighter. So if they're going to look at another comparable opponent, I mean, there is no comparison when you look at what Miami did to Syracuse and what Notre Dame did to Syracuse. So looking for Notre Dame to make its mark against Stanford the same way.
Well, all you have to do is listen to what the coach said. The Stanford coach, he said it all. He's faced Miami, and he's dreading facing Notre Dame because he saw the blitzkrieg that was the Syracuse game, and it's hard to not sense that hey, these guys are hitting on all cylinders. Where Notre Dame is now is not the same place they were when they played Miami, and this is on both sides of the ball and in special teams.
I'll be brief. The over/under in this game is 51.5. I think Notre Dame gets it themselves. So I think they go to work again, and maybe a lot more of the backups in this game to get healthy for the second round, for the first round of the playoffs. But I think they can control this game pretty easily, and I think you have to be wise with how you feed Jeremiyah Love, trying to help him get the Heisman, but also picking your spots correctly and not calling a game with, I think, the Heisman in mind. But I think they'll make good work of Stanford's defense in this game.
I gotta ask,
right, well,
do you know when they're going down? When are they going out there? Are they going early?
They leave on Thursday, so they're going to do Thanksgiving as a
good.
team,
It's
and then
all
they're going to
good.
fly out Thursday night.
Perfect. That's perfect because it gives them a full day. Because again, I mean, people don't see it, but that does impact you when you travel out west and then you're playing that late. Just to seeing them going out early, they can kind of develop and get into a rhythm, and they'll be able to hit on all cylinders and not have to worry about any, that time lag of moving from one time zone to another. But that is a thing. I believe me.
All right, well, let's take another time out. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Jay Love. And before we lose one of our Heisman contenders back in his day, we are going to talk about that. But let's take our break real quick, and we'll talk to them.
Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. College football is here. It's the best time of the year. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, and that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Just pulled up Gametime in just a couple taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your college football games as low as $25. We're going to be using Gametime potentially if we're all going to be driving up to Norman, Oklahoma to see the Irish play in the first round of the playoffs. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download the Gametime app today.
All right. Before we have to lose Alan Pinkett, because he also does the Colts squad show, and he's doing that tonight as well. I want to ask you. So, Alan, back in your day, 1985, you finished 8th in the Heisman voting and finished with 1,100 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns. I believe you said that was not including. Did that include the postseason or not? But tell us who did win that year, because it was a pretty good one. That's a tough guy to go up against.
Yeah, it was Bo Jackson who won it. And I mean, it was already decided after the first week of the season. Our first game we played against Michigan, I didn't get in the end zone at all. Bo Jackson scored 6 touchdowns his first game of the season. So there was it was always looking up at Bo. I remember my dad was talking noise to me. Something about your Heisman run is slow to a walk. Is what he told me. But look, Bo Jackson is still one of the premier athletes I've ever seen in my life, and there was just not going to be any beating him. But I think I got some sympathy votes because we went 5-6 that year. 1,100 yards was the lowest of the 2 prior years where I had gone over 1,000, and I didn't have a crowded backfield like Reggie had, but I tell people the ball wasn't heavy, so they could give it to me as many times as they wanted, but I try to do something with it. And it is an honor to be mentioned in the Heisman, but I didn't get the trip to New York either, and I think that's back at the time where they did it at the New York Athletic Club. They didn't have a huge venue for it, but it still carried the same prestige as it does today. But I think back in my time, more running backs won it than quarterbacks, but that changed shortly thereafter.
Absolutely. And Alan, if you got to hop off, you go ahead and hop off, but just a parting shot here. You've been getting a lot of love, so to speak, because of all the love Jeremiah has been getting, and they keep flashing up the career rushing touchdowns. And you're still number 1 in Notre Dame history with 49. And you said that did not include postseason, correct?
Correct. And then total touchdowns is 53. I was fortunate enough to catch a couple passes. I don't know if that cushion is enough with the number of games that's left, but it's kind of nice to be brought back into the fold. And, for some folks to, I guess, look at it and say, damn, you scored that many times, but I would trade it all for a national championship.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, thank you very much, Alan. And Reggie, it's your turn because you were a finalist. You did finish 5th and you did get an invite to New York. And
actually, no, I did not get an invite to New York. I actually went to the Doak Walker Award. So they'd gotten a little cheap. So they went from 5 to 3. So I didn't quite make it. Ripoff. Oh, no, I was fine. Because again, my whole thing was actually the guy that won it had no business winning the Heisman that year. I mean, for me, my money was on Marshall Faulk, but that was one, it was 3, me, Garrison Hirsch, and Marshall Faulk. It really should have been out of the 3 of us. And Marshall Faulk, we all know the dynamic player that he is and was with the Colts, but in the Rams. But he was the same dynamic player coming out of college, but he was a sophomore, and that was like, no, we're not giving it to sophomores back then. But you look at it, it was awesome because again, I was, in a backfield with Heisman candidates, Jerome and Rick Meyer. So just playing with those guys, like I said, I benefited greatly because focus was on stopping Jerome and slowing down Rick. And it just opened up the opportunities for me. And, you just take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. And our offensive line was just phenomenal. And, that includes our tight ends. Our receivers were some of the best downfield blocking tight ends. Adrian Jarrell, D. Mays, Lake Dawson. I mean, we had some guys that would go downfield. Again, I had a lot of big runs, but those big runs would never have happened if I didn't have the guys downfield blocking. Because coach, if Rick threw an interception, he was never going to throw a lot of interceptions because we would stop throwing the ball at all and just run, regardless of how many people were up on the line of scrimmage. So it was nice to be included, but my money was, I was like, hey, if it's supposed to go to the best player, Marshall Faulk was as dynamic as they come then, and I thought he was a better return man because he was a return man. He was out of the backfield running. The young man did it all, and I say young, but he was only like a couple of years younger than me.
Well, you talk about what an incredible offense that was, and you had several guys go on to the NFL, win Super Bowl championships, but don't count yourself short there, because I'm going to brag on you for just a minute. Some of your stats from that 92 regular season: you rushed for 1,343 yards, 13 touchdowns on just 167 carries, averaging 8.04 yards average per attempt. That's averaging about 14 carries per game, because you shared the load with Jerome Bettis. And I read this old quote from you, and you said, well, you had to run for as much as you could when you got the ball in your hands, because you knew when you got to the goal line, they were going to hand it off to Jerome.
Well, I always believed, and again, like I said, we talk about, the big numbers and Jeremiah not having the big numbers. I just look at his production. His production speaks volumes, as is the same with Jadarian Price. Aeneas Williams is another one. I mean, you look at they're averaging well over 5 yards a carry, and they maximize their opportunities. And that's what, again, the next level, that's what scouts are concerned about. It's like, hey, what does this individual do with the carries that they get? And that was kind of my thing, is like, hey, I'm going to take advantage of the opportunities. And the other thing is, I would, if you're going to break a long run, don't force the offensive lineman to run all the way down there if you're not going to put the ball in the end zone. The big fellas, they don't knock you all that down. So I wanted to make sure I took care of my big guys, took care of their legs.
Well, who won it in 92? Was that Gino?
Yes. And he was only because he was on the, Miami, and they were the top team. And then they wound up going and playing Alabama and got thumped. And, he again, great guy, but was not deserving of the Heisman Trophy.
I have always thought that they should, and maybe you would disagree with this, but I think that they should wait until after the complete season, after the national championship game, because I think that says a lot about the player you are and how you play in that championship game, in your final game, in your bowl game, whatever your final game is. If you go out and lay an egg, and we've seen guys do that. I think was Eric Crouch a few years ago. I mean, wins the Heisman and then goes and plays awful in their final game of the season in the bowl game. So I've always thought that was kind of disappointing. Joe, we'll bring you back in here.
Yes.
It's been a while. Haven't heard from you.
It's all right.
Jeremiyah Love, he's finally getting some of that attention. We've all been talking about it all season. The national guys are talking about it now too. He's trending upwards. He's now a finalist for both the Doak Walker for best running back and the Maxwell Award for the collegiate player of the year. And just your thoughts. Do you think he will have enough opportunity in this game against Stanford that he can prove that he deserves to be the Heisman Trophy winner?
I think he will. Like, I trust Vegas more than a lot of things. And I think on Saturday when we were doing the Syracuse game, the post-game show, I think he was still plus 20, like plus 2,000 to win the Heisman. He's plus 210 in some places now. Some places it's plus 450, but he's moved into the top three. It's him, Julian Sayin, and Fernando Mendoza. Him versus Sayin, I'll start there. Julian Sayin, good season with Ohio State. He's a good quarterback. He's the third best player at best on his team. Caleb Downs is better. Jeremiah Smith is better. He's not even the best player on his team. He should not be in front of Jeremiah Love. Mendoza, I get it. I think it's a good story. But because the vote happens after the title game, right, in the Big Ten, that to me is like what it might come down to is like if Jeremiah Love goes off in this game, but then Mendoza lays a stinker against Ohio State, that might give you the chance to get him the Heisman. He should win it. He's the best player in the country. And it's no disrespect to Fernando Mendoza. He might be the first pick in the NFL draft this year to the New York Jets or whoever. But Jeremiyah Love is the best player in this country by a wide margin. And he's so clearly the best player on a team that is going to be in the playoff, that has a lot of talent on it. The talent gap there is so clear. I mean, what he did, I think that's probably what he has to do again this weekend, what he did against Syracuse. Less than 10 carries, over 150 yards, 3 touchdowns, like that dynamic level performance. He probably needs that to win it, but I think he should win it this year. And I know we're all biased, but I think he's the best player in the country. And I don't think it's particularly close, to be honest.
Well, I just think if he had the opportunity, what Jaderin is doing is returning kicks. I think that would put him over the top because he's just as dynamic return man. If he were returning punts or returning kicks, that would put him over the top because, again, that's, you get so many sports writers and, that are Heisman voters, they tend to lean towards stats. They see stats because they don't see all the games. And I 100% agree, Joe. This young man, he epitomizes what you want in a Heisman Trophy winner. He's such a dynamic player. His runs, his power, he ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. He runs good routes. Hell of a blocker. And I think that's an area that is so underrated as far as, that position and for him on the team, because I've seen him lead block for Jaderin. I've seen him lead block for CJ. And it's not like he's just bumping into guys and getting in the way. He's decleating people. He's taking on linebackers, safeties, and butting them up. And they're like, oh, whoa, they weren't expecting to get punched in the mouth. So 100% agree. This kid he's a Heisman. He just epitomizes the Heisman. I kind of liked how he busted out the Heisman foes after the game.
Do it again.
Hey, you gotta say you gotta sell yourself, and he hadn't done that all year. He was letting everybody else, selling. But you gotta, if you want it, go get it. And he's doing it.
Well, I always say that to my kids. You have to be your own advocate, right? If you're not willing to fight for yourself, why should anybody else? And so he's proving that he's willing to fight for himself a little bit there. And if you haven't noticed, you better take notice because he's getting it done. I hope he has another big game. I hope he stays healthy and stays safe. But man, let him go off. And you have to imagine, Denbrock and Freeman, they want it for their guy. And Denbrock has coached a Heisman Trophy winner. So he knows that he can help give Jeremiyah the best chance that he can possibly get. So fingers crossed for what we're going to see on Saturday. All right, guys, as we're kind of wrapping things up tonight, just, we touched on it that Notre Dame, they will have Thanksgiving dinner, brunch, whatever you call it, as a team here in South Bend. And then they will be heading down or out to California on Thursday evening. Just to wrap it up for us, Reggie, what was it like as a player? When you played, did you guys have Thanksgiving dinner as a team and then travel, or how did that work? And what was that experience like to be away from home, be away from your family, but be with your football family?
One of the things that we would we would leave on Thursday too. We would have a Thanksgiving brunch, which is still just the food was horrible back then. So I'm being triggered a little bit just remembering some of the stuff we ate. But the best thing about it is when we would go out to California on Thursday, the parents of guys that lived in California would bring Thanksgiving dinner to us at the hotel.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was that just always stuck with me, is that, when you talk about the Notre Dame family, it was definitely that. Because again, being away from home and, I was fortunate because my sister was out there. So she lived out on the West Coast. So I would get to see her. And then, like I said, a lot of times my parents would actually drive out to California to watch the game. So, but to have people that didn't have family that was from the East Coast to come out there and prepare a meal, because I'm telling you, the most important thing for a player back then, even then now, you get hungry, and if you get good food, that is like gold. And I mean, I remember, like I said, have the greens, the turkey, the mac and cheese, like a home cooked meal. Y'all just don't know how just it inspired you to go out and whoop somebody's behind the next, a day later. Because, just having that, people to have that kind of compassion on you. And I love to eat, and that was one of the things, like I said, you get people that cater like holiday meals. That was one thing me and the wife, we agreed to early on. It's like, no catering of the holiday meals. You can cater other stuff. Even when I was in the pros, my wife cooked and she threw down. And even if I was away, I made sure, because we would eat before. We weren't like the Cowboys where we had to play on Thanksgiving Day. But I'm looking forward to watching this game just because I want to see this young man go out and just explode, have a great game. I want him to, like I said, rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. So I will enjoy my turkey while I'm watching this man destroy them Cardinals. Cardinal, sorry.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this preview show. Notre Dame, Stanford, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching or listening. We know there's a lot of podcasts out there, but it means a lot to us that you make our podcast one of the ones that you go to every week. So we will be back again on Saturday, really Sunday morning after that very, very late night matchup with the Cardinal. And if you enjoyed the show today, please give this video a like, rate the show 5 stars, leave a review. All that stuff really makes a difference. And please subscribe to us on YouTube. And because of fans just like you, Locked On is now the #1 sports podcast network. So thank you very much. We will be back with more on Sunday. But for now, go Irish.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.